Films are a great way to put yourself back into another time, to imagine what it's like to be in a slice of history. So I'm going to share with you 5 of my favourite history films that I watched in 2023. I'm not going to say they're the best history films ever, but I do like to look at surprising and non-mainstream films, not just Hollywood blockbusters, and that might offer you some fresh perspective on both some great movies and help you be curious about different sides of world history. I think the great things about these 5 films is they do offer you a fresh perspective on their topics and on history itself. Truth is stranger than fiction, and good history films are much better than tired old tropes like the epic fail of Ridley Scott's Napoleon. The first film is, for me, it's a tearjerker, really. I've watched it every couple of years and it always stirs the emotions for me. It's the 1996 classic, The English Patient. It won, I believe, a number of Academy Awards. And it stars Ralph Fiennes, Juliette Binoche, Kristen Scott Thomas, Willem Dafoe. Absolutely brilliant cast, brilliantly performed. But it's also the story and the history of this film that I think makes it so interesting. It presents a cast of characters in sort of colonial, British colonial Egypt in the midst of World War II, as the conflict between, I guess, the Allied and the Axis powers is looming, and both the romance and the tragedy and the drama of those events. It is also, in a way, a story about history. It features a wonderful scene that retells a story from Herodotus, often seen as one of the fathers of history, the Greek historian Herodotus. And what's more, I think what I find fascinating about this film is it presents World War II as a world war, not just Britain and America and Germans, but we see Egypt, we see Indian colonial soldiers, we see Canadian soldiers serving in the British Imperial Army, and we see the conflict in Italy as well. It is an absolutely fantastic movie. My second film is from 1983, Danton, starring the brilliant, or at least then brilliant, Gérard Depardieu. Danton is a film about the French Revolution. People who've admired the scenes about the French Revolution in Ridley Scott's Napoleon might want to compare it to the extraordinary presentation in this film. And it's directed by a Polish director in 1983, in the midst of the continuing struggles of solidarity against the communist regime in Poland. It is a haunting story of revolution, the dangers of an ideological viewpoint on the world, and it contains some of the best historical character acting I've seen. Depardieu is brilliant as Georges Danton, the radical revolutionary leader who gets consumed by the terror as the revolutionary fervour of the regime eats itself. And there are fantastic portraits of Robespierre, Saint-Just and Camille Desmoulins. Brilliant film. It also offers a fascinating insight into the questioning of revolutionary ideology in the East European world as that ideology is falling apart in the 1980s. It's an fascinating reflection on the legacy of revolution, which has been mythologized by both the left and the right, and this film is an extraordinary and profound reflection on that. My third film is from 1985. It's a Soviet film, or Russian film, Come and See. This is a film of World War II. Some people say this is the greatest war movie and the greatest anti-war movie that has ever been made. It focuses on the story of two young people in Belarusia who get caught up in resistance fighting to the German occupying forces in the early 1940s. It begins slowly with presenting the scenes of some young boys who are sort of playing toy soldiers, so to speak, as the reality of war washes over them. It contains some profoundly moving scenes, and I learnt so much about the nature of the impact of the war on this part of the world during this film. Tragic stories. It's not a movie for a relaxing weeknight's view. You need to steel yourself to watch this movie. But at some point you do that, because this is a profoundly rewarding movie that everyone should watch to really, I guess, come to terms with the pity, the horror and the realities and the suffering of war. My fourth film is from 1992, and it is Farewell, My Concubine, directed by Kagi Chen. It's a brilliant film about the Chinese Cultural Revolution. It begins way back in 1924, during the period of internal strife within China after the fall of the Qing dynasty, as the country is being sort of torn apart by warlord conflicts and will soon also be attacked by Japan. But many of the old cultural traditions of China are still surviving, and one of those is the Beijing opera, the Chinese opera. The two principal characters of this film begin as young students in the Beijing opera. They both grow into becoming the great stars of the Beijing opera. Through the course of that story, you learn about their experience of the Japanese invasion, you learn about their experience of the Japan-Chinese War, you learn about their experience of the early part of the 1949 Chinese Revolution. And then it culminates, I guess, really dramatically in the extraordinary story of the Chinese Cultural Revolution from the mid-1960s to the early 1970s, during which the old-fashioned culture of the Beijing opera is denounced and attacked violently. This is a profoundly moving film. This is a profoundly instructive film about Chinese history, and it's made even more remarkable when you realize that the director Chen Kagi himself participated in the Chinese Cultural Revolution and was amongst the young students who were denouncing his own cultural traditions and indeed his own family. A profoundly important film to watch, I think, especially in this time as China's role in the world becomes more important to understand. Its 20th century history is crucial to understand. And a recent book by Tanya Brannigan, Red Memory, explores that to some degree. And do subscribe to my channel, because I'll be bringing you a video about Tanya Brannigan's book Red Memory Soon, and her reflections on the Chinese Cultural Revolution. So a couple of tragic films there. Come and see Danton, Farewell My Concubine, difficult experiences. And my last film also has some difficult experiences, but overall it's a film of remarkable joy, and what a great way to round out this list of 5 favourite history films from 2023. And it is the film of RRR, Rise, Roar, Revolt. This is the story of two, I guess it's a fictional story, but there's a lot of history involved in this story. The two main figures are based on real historical figures. It's a vibrant, energetic story, I guess, of the resistance of many in India to British rule, British exploitation through the British Empire. And towards the end of the film, it celebrates many of those who rose, roared, and revolted against that British imperial rule over a couple of 100 years. Absolutely marvellous film. I think it's about 3 hours, but it doesn't feel like 3 hours. It's vibrant, it has dance scenes, it has humour, it has serious moments, it has profound legendary stories from Indian culture. It has important historical perspectives on Indian history, and I highly recommend this film. And indeed, if you have enjoyed this video, why don't you give it a like, and why don't you just check out the video I did earlier this year on RRR right here.